What's up, soldiers? Your boy Chris here, caribbeanpot.com vibes, and up in the kitchen as usual. It's the holiday season, Christmas around the corner, in less than a week I believe it is. So we're starting off the whole Christmas vibe. We're satisfying the curry mouths in your family, and maybe you're a curry mouth as well too. Nothing wrong with that. Today we're doing a curry duck, but we're going to do it a little bit different. You're going to like this one, man. So we're starting off the season here. 5 recipes back to back. We've got that jerk turkey coming. We've got a sorrel glazed ham coming. A Christmas rice, a Spanish rice, and who knows, maybe I might toss something in as a little bonus. But you will see some surprise appearances coming up as well too. Another chef is going to join us, and he's going to give us his take on some niceness, man. So vibes it up, stay tuned. 5 days, 5 recipes. Let's rock this curry duck. I've got my heavy iron pot here on the stove, medium high heat, with about 2 to 3, that's closer to 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil in there. And right away, now that is on a medium high heat. It's nice and hot. I'm gonna go in with 1 diced small onion. And I have here about 10 cloves, small cloves of garlic, which I just smashed with the back of my knife. Right away, I'm going to turn my heat down to low. We want this to gently cook for about 3 or 4 minutes, just to release all those nice flavors without burning the garlic. The garlic is now starting to take on some color, so too the onions. So this is where we're going to go in now with our curry powder. And use your favorite curry powder. I'm using a Madras blend, which is made in the Caribbean. So I'm quite partial to my Caribbean curry powders. And that is about 3 tablespoons or so of that curry powder. Heat still on low. What we're trying to do here, and I know this curry duck, I said the curry duck is being made in the oven, but what we're trying to do here is to first start it on the stove. So maybe about 15 minutes, 15-20 minutes on the stove, and then we're going to go into the oven. The reason being, we want to toast the spices which makes up the curry powder, and second of all, we want to cook out that raw curry taste, because if we don't do it here, you will get a sort of a raw curry taste once, if you skip this step. When it's done cooking, it will have that raw curry taste. So I want that to go toasting there. It's going to clump, it's going to go a little bit darker, but you want to give it about 4 or 5 minutes. I'm going to crank up my heat now to medium high, closer to high. You notice how it's taken on some nice color. Your entire kitchen should have that lovely aroma of that curry happening here. And if you wanted to add some more curry powder in here, you can certainly do that. I don't like it too heavy on the curry, but it's totally up to you. 3 tablespoons should be fine. Now what we're going to do here is, by cranking up the heat, we're going to start adding the pieces of seasoned duck meat that I did earlier. Overnight, I had it overnight. So I'm just adding it here to the pot. Give it a stir. Remember, heat is on high. We want to sort of sear the pieces of duck as well as coat it with all that curry goodness. I'm going to continue adding it and stirring at the same time. We got a piece trying to get away from the pot here, but we're going in there, buddy. And I'm just trying to deglaze that pot, get all that curry out of the bottom of the pot there, all that niceness. Coat every piece of duck with it. My heat is still on high, because as I said, I want to sear this. I'm going to continue going with this for about 15 minutes. In the meanwhile, I'm going to preheat the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And while we wait for this to do its thing, I'm going to quickly show you how I washed and seasoned this duck meat. During the video, I'm going to share some tips with you guys. And right now here, this is one, a male duck, which is called a drake, and it's a Muscovy duck that it's been cut up by the butcher. So the first step I'm going to get you guys to do is get your butcher to cut it with a saw. And you'll notice how clean the cuts on the bones are. The bones on the duck can be relatively brittle. So if you're trying to use a Chinese cleaver or a cutlass or whatever to cut it, it may have little pieces of bones all over when you're done cooking. It just happens. That's typical. The other tip too, not too big. I mean, this is a little bit too big. There's still one kind of buck on it, but it will shrink down. The third tip is, we want to wash this And typically in the Caribbean, we wash with lemon juice or lime juice or vinegar. Don't add any sort of acid to this. It will toughen up the meat. What we're going to use is some flour, just all-purpose flour. We're going to mix it in there, mix it all up, get into all the pieces, and then use water and really get in there and rinse it. The fourth tip, skin that duck. Now, things like the wings, these are the wing tips and stuff like that. But if you notice, there's no skin on most of it. Well, 99% of it. Get that butcher to skin it. You don't want to be eating all that fat, and I know traditionalists will say, but Chris, we need that duck fat and that duck skin in there for flavor. No, you don't. Trust me, you don't. And I think we're up to what, tip number 5 now? When you get to the butcher, ask them to flame roast it. So what it does, and this is the wing tips, and this is the only piece I can really show it to you because it still has the skin on there. Wings, no wing tip. You can notice the char marks, and what that does is, duck is famous for having baby feathers, not really fully developed yet. So even after plucking, you will see little feathers on there. And the last thing you want to do is, well, yourself, to eat pieces of duck with feathers in there or to serve it. So those are my tips. Now we're going to get to washing it. So as I said, all-purpose flour. We're just going to go in with our flour. Just about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons or so. Just going to go in and work that all the way to every piece of that duck and really work it in there. Next up, we're going to go in with cool water, just tap water, and really take each piece and wash it piece by piece and remove it from the bowl. I'm just putting it back here just for now, but that's all going to come out of the bowl. Then we're going to rinse it all out and then drain it. I've gone ahead and I've washed the duck now with that flour and water. I've drained it relatively dry. One more thing I forgot to mention, that's, remember, those char marks that you see there, and I said it's from the flames that they used to get rid of the baby feathers. That flame, and I recall when my grandmother would make curry duck, she would do it in an open fire and roast the entire thing. And according to her, it would add a lovely flavor to the meat itself. Here we go now. I have the meat in a colander, and you really want to drain that out. Let it drain for about 10-15 minutes to make sure you get all that water and blood out of it. Especially the blood, it could influence the taste of the curry duck once it's done cooking. So try and drain that out, and then we're going to get to actually seasoning and marinating this. It's been drained, washed, drained, and everything else, so we got it all prepped there and ready. Now it's time to season and marinate this, and now I would recommend marinating this overnight or for at least 3 to 4 hours. I'm going in with some salt, fresh ground black pepper, and remember, a good curry duck is supposed to be, well, from my point of view, spicy. So I've got here 1 scotch bonnet pepper, the entire thing, seeds and everything. That's going to go in there. We're going to go in with some what we call roasted geera, which is pretty much cumin. Roasted those, so you notice the dark color, and the aroma from that is going to be wicked. A teaspoon of that. All the ingredients I use here today will be listed down in the description of the video, and I will post a video on caribbeanpot.com. Just for marinating, just a little bit of curry powder, maybe about a tablespoon or so. Later on, we're really going to get on with that curry powder. Some scallions. Some shado beni. And if you can't get shado beni is also known as culantro. If you can't get that, you can use cilantro. And I have here my blend of Caribbean green seasoning, and I did mine with olive oil. So there's garlic and all the herbs and everything else that I like in here. A couple tablespoons of that. And in the Southern Caribbean, we call it Caribbean green seasoning. In the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, it is known as wow, I can't remember the name now, but anyway, my Haitian brothers and sisters will know it as epis, E-P-I-S. We'll get back to the Spanish name for it, but anyways, all we're gonna do now is go in there, mix that up, and allow it, cover it, allow it to marinate in the fridge for at least 4 hours. It's been going now for about 15 minutes with the lid off, no lid on there. It's sprung up its natural juices. What I'm going to do here now is turn off that stove. And then my oven is coming up to temperature 375 degrees. I'm just going to transfer it now into my baking dish. So I've got it here in my oven proof dish now. What I like doing, and this is totally optional, I like tossing in some of these bird's eye chilies or bird's eye pepper. Bird pepper we call it down in the Caribbean. I like doing that. And now what we're going to do next is take tin foil and seal this really tight. Now notice I didn't put any liquid. Whatever liquid it sprouted there in the pot is in the bottom there. But by putting that sort of tin foil over it, it will create more juices and cook nice and sweet in the oven. Middle rack, at least a couple hours. It's been going now for about 45 minutes, and notice all that liquid I told you is going to sprout out naturally. Now, if you're wondering what's the reason behind putting this in the oven, is basically, one, to cook it differently, and two, to show you that you can free up your time on Christmas Day or the day before Christmas or whenever. 15-20 minutes on the stove, the rest of it in the oven. You can't go wrong. You could be hosting your family, your friends, whoever, and enjoying yourself. You can also do this, start it on the stove and finish it in a slow cooker as well. Back in the oven, I'm going to cover back that. I'm going to give it a stir, and I'm going to cover it and put it back in the oven. So there we go, friends. It's been about 2 hours in the oven. No fuss. You just put it in there, you forget it, and then, you know, maybe an hour into it, you give it a quick stir. If you want, you can remove the tin foil earlier if you really want to thicken up the gravy. We've got some nice gravy in there. Always a pleasure to have you guys here in the kitchen with me. I'm just going to go in like I normally do with any sort of curry that I do. So that's a tip from moms. Moms usually do that. And that is there, some fresh shado beni, cut up very finely. Always a pleasure to have you guys here in the kitchen. Remember, I said it's going to be 5 recipes. We've got that jerk turkey coming. We've got that that ham with the sorrel glazed, the Christmas rice, the Spanish rice, and if I have time, there's going to be another bonus recipe coming up. Curry duck in the oven. Very simple, very tasty, and to suit, like I said, all the curry mouths in your family. So vibes it up, man.